Check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Did a quick confirmation in the chat. Hopefully, everybody had a good day today. Happy Friday. Got a confirmation audio video is good. Awesome, awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Coach Paul is going to be out today, unless he hits me up and says he's going to join a little bit late. But welcome, everyone, to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I am Coach Jay. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, try to take advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. I'm Coach Jay, been a Top Step performance coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 13 years and in the futures markets for the past 6. Like I said, my co-host Coach Paul is out for today, but let's get into this markets. Let me know how your day ended up today. Were you up on the day, down on the day? Did you get caught up in some of the volatility for today? We're definitely going to talk about that. I had a decent day, pretty much recovered the losses that I had from yesterday, uh, plus a little bit. But I locked myself out before most of that volatility. I want to talk about this because I did trade it in a practice account, and Coach Paul and I talk a lot about this volatility in the season that we're kind of coming into with this new administration and all the tariff news and things like that. But we will talk about it. Let's see what we got. Bobby says, well done on the day. Storm Dragon up for the day. Big Turkey plus 484. Had a perfect 9 a.m. short and gave it all back over trading. Rich, got to be conscious of that, right? Use those lockout features. I think I definitely could have overtraded and I could have had a great day. I'll show you what I did on the practice account. Could have had a great day, but the way I felt my trading was going, it was better to just lock myself out. Great day for Paul H. Good to hear. And then I got M saying, got smoked, entered the Trump fade 100 points down initially, re-averaging too aggressively. So we're going to talk about how we can trade these. I'll be the first person to say you don't have to trade this volatility. It is pretty crazy. It's funny. I was talking to some people in Discord, and when I kind of really started getting into trading, it was in the beginning of that first Trump presidency. Uh, and I think with my experience now, this is all making a lot more sense on how I'm going to approach it, if at all. But it is a volatile time. You definitely want to stay small, right? In times like this, and know when you're wrong, and not try to fight some of these moves. But let's take a look at the calendar real quick just to see what we had. Most of the news that we're going to see is about tariffs. I'm just doing catch up right now. I was doing some other stuff, and we're going to share. We look at the top percentage movers. It is the end of the month, so we're going to take a look at those as well. But I'm still catching up on all the tariff stuff myself. Um, but pretty much tariffs on everything. I think the last headline I saw was tariffs on chips as well, so that might affect Nvidia. We got tariffs on steel, aluminum, copper, oil and gas tariffs February 18th. It's almost tough to keep up with. So the one thing it means for all of us as day traders is volatility, right? In what sounds like a couple of different products. So just be aware, keep your head on a swivel. Don't hold on to anything for too long. Strong opinions, loosely held, I think is a very good motto, and protecting your risk really in this time is important. But let's see. As far as planned news goes today, we had what do we have out today? A couple of different numbers. It looks like we had some numbers out of Europe, some CPI numbers out of Europe. Core PCE in the U.S. Came in at 0.2%. It looks like. Is that right? Came in at negative 0.2%. Forecast was 0.1%. But again, most of these planned headlines are going to take a back seat to any unplanned headlines right now. That we had Jim Dalton on earlier this week, and he talked about, it feels like the adults aren't at the table. And with the uncertainty, right, they still have to, trade through this volatility as well, right, where we might not be seeing a ton of positioning or directional moves. The market is kind of waiting to see what the new environment is going to be. And I think we're seeing that still giving us some opportunity, still some opportunity to trade. And we'll talk about that. USMC, what's going on? Not much. Having a good day. Hopefully you're having a good Friday. Uh, you weren't trading on tilt. Uh, Guys are talking to each other in the chat, which is cool. I'll try to keep up with the chat as well. And then if you guys do have any questions for me while we go through these, uh, Andrew will send those over. So top percentage movers on the day today, 35 different markets we can trade with Top Step accounts. To the downside, we had corn down 1.53%. Uh, Lean hogs down 1.77%, and micro Bitcoin futures down 3.44% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. To the upside, we had platinum up 1.61%, micro Ethereum futures up 1.63%, and soybean oil, our biggest percentage mover to the upside, at 2.6%. To talk about our big four, we had crude oil up 1.11%. I think everything else was down. Gold down 0.39%. The S&P is down 0.53%. And where's the NASDAQ on this list? Why can I never find the NASDAQ on this list? The NASDAQ down 0.2%. So as crazy as this day was, um, it doesn't look like a 0.2% down day, right? Where we filled the gap that we opened up this week with. And I'm going to go out to this chart. We filled this gap. I think a lot of people were looking at 22,000s as a potential target. I know where I had my target, and I mentioned it in Discord. 50% of last Friday's range. We'll take a look at that. Um, but everything looked good this morning, right? Everything looked great this morning. The rally's back on. See people on Twitter posting, "Oh, the DeepSeek stuff was just a liquidity grab, so buyers can step in and potentially." But with the uncertainty, anything can happen. A headline comes out and brings us right back down to where we came. So big moves across the board. I do want to just quickly show something that we'll probably talk a lot more about in the end of the session. But if you want to have something to look forward to towards the end of the session, we are going to look at the stats for the biggest percentage movers. We focus on the top three every day. At least we call them out. We may not focus on them, but we call them out. So we put together a little data visualization of those. We'll kind of talk about what were the biggest percentage movers for the month, and obviously you can see it. Little sneak peek here. Natural gas, as we expected. I think there was 21 trading days in the month, not including the 20th, which was a half day, and natural gas in that top three, 13 of those days. Uh, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. What indicators do you use for volume? So if you can see it on my charts here, I have just the volume indicator on the bottom of my chart, uh, and I use VWAP, and I look at Quantower as well. And on the Quantower platform, I have uh, what I called in Quantower is called power trades. I look at power trades and then delta information as well. I can kind of go through everything that I look at as far as volume. Again, it's not necessary. I don't think every trader needs it. It's what I use to take trades, but I don't think everyone needs it. But let's go through these markets. I have a 30-minute chart up here on the NASDAQ. And from last night's open, it looked like a buy, right? Here's last night's 30-minute open. We're above Coach Paul's 200 moving average. And we're moving to the upside, right? It looked all good. That gap was a decent target to look for potential longs. And off the open last night, it looked like a buy, right? Overnight, um, kind of a trend up. Wasn't the most urgent move, where it took a little while for volume to leave this range, but price did. And we just continued to go. I think there was news last night, and it's hard to keep up with how many times tariffs get mentioned, but I think last night as well, there was a mention of it. And I know Dakota locked out his account because of it, where he's like, you know what, I'm not going to even try to trade this volatility at this time, which is a good decision, right? If you don't have a plan or if you just don't feel comfortable with the uncertainty, you do not have to trade these markets. So just remember that. Um, I don't use Renko charts. I've never really used them. How do we save ourselves from Trump planned news? Okay. We'll talk about how to trade the volatility, right? And again, you might not have to trade. You don't have to trade these markets, right? We talk about the top percentage movers all the time. Some of these markets don't get affected by this uncertainty, right? Now, you might have to get out of your comfort zone and trade something different, but technical patterns work everywhere, right? So you could either trade smaller, trade micros, maybe not trade it at all. I had a trader in Discord say they didn't take a trade all week until today and then had a great day, right? So you don't have to trade every day unless if you don't see a great setup. But be patient. Be patient in all of this. We said it on Topstep TV also. It's been a great week on Topstep TV. The house account has been up. We had great guests, Jim Dalton, Dr. Steenbarger. House account traded really well. We saw MP come back on the show. Um, a lot of great stuff this week, and I think the biggest thing is the markets are not going to stay like this, right? It's we're less than a month into a new administration, so all of this stuff is going to come out in the beginning. Um, so it's not going to stay like this. So if now is a time where you want to sit back until things get a little more normal, that's fine. It's crazy to say that because, like I said in the beginning, this feels normal to me because this is how I learned how to trade. But uh, it's quick. It's really quick. Um, all right. So we had the rally into the close. Just want to look at, so we had this gap as well, right? So target being this gap. For me, and I mentioned this in Discord, my target was 50% of, and you guys know how much I love 50% retracements. 50% retracement of this Friday move. If you guys remember, I don't know who watched Slow Markets with Dakota last week, Thursday, but we talked a lot about some of the orders that were getting filled um, overnight. So, we saw a bunch of orders get filled overnight, which was Thursday night going into Friday. Uh, we have whatever price action Friday, and then we open up the week with this huge move down. So, just looking at the amount of volume that got traded here, I don't want to leave this price action alone. And, you guys know how I work, just high and low of the range. Where's 50%? That was today's target today. I had a winning day today. I took one long trade. And my first long trade was at 21,776. I'm gonna put a line on the chart to show you where that is, and kind of show you guys what I was looking at. But we have the 30-minute opening range. We know we have it down here. We have VWAP here, and then we had the New York session open, which is right here. Mark that out. So we have New York session open. You guys know I'm not going to trade in that first 3 minutes. Let the market establish a range. Um, we come back and check the overnight VWAP, and this is where I'm saying I need to get long. I short arm this trade, and I'm going to be honest, it kind of threw me off because the exact move I was looking for happened, and it happened quick, and I think I took it for 10 points, and that was the only long trade I took for the day. Uh, but right location, right idea, and could have been a 200-point trade, right, or 200-point move. I think I'm okay with taking 40% of that. But I got out of that trade a little bit early, maybe being a little impatient. But once we rallied, I took shorts on the way up here, and that's part of the reason I locked myself out. Just realizing that I was counter the trend. Yesterday, I preempted a short, and I really did like the shorts. I know Dakota took a short on fast markets. I really did like the shorts, but I felt like I was trying to force the move to happen instead of waiting for it to happen. And uh, I felt like, if the market wanted to continue to push up, eventually that was going to turn into a loss. So I was going to lock myself out and just, be done for the day. Uh, so we checked right up to that 50%. We see the volume pattern here, right? Volume stopped trading above that average. And remember what we talked about earlier in the week, right? As price goes up, if volume doesn't continue waxing, right, then eventually there's going to be a turn, right? And that's exactly what we got. We got below average volume. We see price coming back down. This is the short that Dakota took, which is a really nice trade. Um, and then eventually, anybody remember what I defined a trigger as in the market? Anybody remember what my definition of a trigger was? Hans, you have a happy weekend too. See a lot of questions coming in the chat. I'll try to get to them, but any there you go, Rich. So it doesn't necessarily have to be news, but it's volume and price action, right? I'm gonna consider a trigger volume and price action. Now I can show you my executions. Not too proud of these executions. My results were good for the day, right? My results were good. My executions were not. I was comfortable with the size I was trading. This is why I locked myself out because I said you're preempting a trade. You had some profits, but you're going to F this day up if you keep doing this and not waiting. Look at what I'm trading in. Low volume time, not real decisive pullbacks. What's the difference between these shorts and this short? Is there any question about volume trading here? None, right? So this to me is what I'm really waiting for. And because I was preempting it, right? A couple of these shorts, you could see I was 30 points away from where the high was. Um, and I'm comfortable in these conditions trading the size that I am. I'm going, 2 or 3 lot positions. But if they're early moves and I'm not patient and waiting for the setup, then they could turn into losers. And that's what happened yesterday, right? So trying to constantly remind myself to wait for the volume to come in. And you have to put the whole puzzle together, right? So I wanted a short. I'm looking at a short the entire time. We filled the gap. Volume started dying. I said, at some point, I feel like there's going to be a short. But is it better for me to just pick a price and say, yeah, I'm short here, or wait for the market to confirm that also? Um, and Bobo just said it. There were big volume clues on that drop. So to me, if I'm looking at my strategy, the way I trade based on volume, the short isn't confirmed until here. And then once this is confirmed, take all the trades that you want to the short side, right? So we're gonna frame this candle out, and I'll go a little bit deeper into my volume analysis. I know Coach Paul's not here, and we will talk about other markets as well. But I really just want to go through this to try to remind people to be patient if you're waiting for a move, right? I liked the shorts the entire time, but it really did take 2.5 hours of patience for the real move to happen. I'm gonna switch over to his practice account and show you guys how I traded this. So here, this is the trigger, right? We got price action, we have volume. I've seen a couple of traders tag me in Discord also saying they took these trades. Price action and volume, right? Why am I calling this price action and volume? We got a volume spike, way bigger than anything else around it. And this candle broke this level here, right? Kind of broke the low of this consolidation and closed below it. So this is my trigger. Then you guys know what I'm going to do from here. And man, it's crazy to even say most of this. Yeah, this is so we last thing I'm going to do is attach a VWAP to it. Now, I had gone through an example. Someone had asked earlier, how can you tell earlier in the week? I think this was Wednesday. It's crazy that this was all just coming together, right? Someone asked earlier in the week, with this news cycle, how can you tell whether or not the moves are going to continue? Does anybody remember what the answer was? Give it a second in the chat. Someone had to ask, and you might be here, not flat VWAP for sure. I forgot who asked the question, but it was how do you volume follow through, right? So we talked about if there's continuation, right? Remember the waxing and waning, right? If volume keeps waxing on and we keep adding volume candles above the average, then the move has the potential to continue. If the volume drops below the average, then the move has the potential to stop. Once we got this spike, consistently above average, consistently above average, consistently above average. This is now 30 minutes in a row where the market's consistently, or 15 minutes in a row where the market's consistently above average volume. What is price doing? It's dropping. This was Wednesday's class. So if you want to get that example, go back and watch Wednesday. But here's again, this is on a practice account. I already locked myself out, but I'm working on taking these setups when they present themselves. If this is the conditions that we're gonna have to trade through, so you can see where my short is 21,874, where we got 50% of this candle, 874, 50% of this candle right around here. My stop was going to be above the high of this candle. We talked about this recently also, right? When you take these momentum trades, where do your stops go? My stops are going to go above where the momentum started, right? Because if it gets back above here, then whoever started this selling, they failed. So my stop is going to go above here. The one thing I will say with these current market conditions is if you have profits, secure them, right? This trade could go 400 points, but I know it happened at the expense. It happened because there was a catalyst, right? There was a news event that caused this, and who knows what could happen with the headlines, right? Somebody could come out with a headline and say, actually, no, that was false news, and then we just see the market recover. So if I have profits, I have to secure them in these current market conditions. I could want the market to go lower, but I have to secure something. Now, whether that means I trade multiple contracts and take one off, maybe I trail the market as it's going in my favor, but conservative price target has to be the low of this candle because if this volume dries out, the move is going to stop here from my playbook. Uh, Rub lag says what you are showing is a hindsight after the fact. I'm literally showing you the executions right here. The literal executions are on the screen right here, right? So the conservative target has to be at the low of this candle here. And then you can see how I got out of this position as that volume continued, right? And I'm out of this full position here. I'm done, right? Where volume started to dry up, the market consolidated for another half an hour. I'm taking my profits and I'm done. All right. The market did continue from here, right? We got another volume spike. Can we do the same thing? Right. We come back, we check this VWAP again, we reject off of it. So there is potential to trade this. Do I suggest everyone trading it? No, I definitely not. We've already talked about, maybe most people not trading the NASDAQ, definitely not trading with minis, most people trading with micros, and uh, keeping your size small. And I've seen a bunch of traders in Discord say, you know what, I don't even have to trade it, right? If it's that crazy, I don't have to trade it. I'll go trade corn and make my money that way. Um, how do you handle regretting not staying in? So the thing is, too, right? I'm showing you these executions. These are on a practice account. Did I want to make this 7 grand in my XFA? 100%, right? I think my mouse just died. Hold on a second. Uh, Mouse is back on. I wanted to make all this money in my XFA, right, or in my personal account, but the way I was trading in the beginning of the day, and this is where we go back to talking about opportunity costs, right? The trades that I took early today, and having the mental capital to take the trades that you wait for are important. I spent a lot of mental capital taking the trades that I took early this morning that I wasn't able to really capitalize on the biggest move for the day, right? So be aware of how much mental capital you're spending taking trades that may not be the best setups, right? Because then you miss out on this. This could have easily been a I don't even want to look at the number, but it could have been a huge day, right? Trading the same size that I was trading, but waiting for the setup, right? So opportunity cost to me is a real thing. For me, being a momentum trader, timing and location matter. Timing I get from volume, location I get from volume as well, and then taking the trades from there. But how do I don't regret it because I know I'm going to trade Monday, uh, and I'll be able to execute the same trade setups, whether or not when they present themselves to me. It's just about me executing it. Uh, your Giorgio made 11K on 5 XFAs. Man, that's great. That is great. You said thanks for the system. Shout out to you for executing the system, right? You executed it way better than me. If you made 11 grand today, so shout out to you. But glad I could help. Um, how much do I risk per trade? 27 color. So I'm risking $900 a day on this account, right? And then it's going to vary between trades, right? Some of the trades I might risk as little as 200 bucks, and then some of them I might just say, hey, you know what, I need $600 to risk on this, or a little bit more. All right, that's a good question. How do you know where to hang the anchored VWAP? First large candle up or down? So I'm gonna anchor those VWAPs to anything that looks like an anomaly, right? This candle was more volume than the open, right? So I have to anchor a VWAP there, right? Because something happened here, right? Something here happened, changed the markets, and then we can see how we respect that VWAP. Now you could do this with a micro. With one micro on this move, this is a 300-point move to the downside with almost no drawdown if we're in decent location. And, you could stomach some of this drawdown. One micro with a 300-point move, you're making a lot of money without a lot of stress. Um, But I'm gonna anchor to where the high volume is, and I'm usually gonna go to the first one, right? So, and why do I say that? So I'm gonna go down to a 1 minute chart real quick. You guys know I use a 3 minute, but I'm gonna go to a 1 minute. But in this case, right here, right where we have these 1 minute candles now. Let's say you use a different time frame than me. You could anchor to both. You could go here. You could go here. Come on. You could go like this, and then anchor another one here. Both of them are going to give you the same information, right? Because the market was selling off. But I'm going to go to the first trigger usually, right? But any questions on that so far? I think we got a couple there. Once we broke New York low a day, it was no brain shorts. The real hard thing was getting the right entries. Yeah, yeah. So and that's the thing, right? Where these 3 minute candles are, sorry, those are 1 minute candles. 1 minute candles, 15 points, right? That's a lot. That's $300 with a one lot mini. Um, $30 with a micro, which is a little more digestible. And again, a really nice move here. 50 points on a one lot micro is $100. Is that right? So you could have, with a one lot micro, you could have made $300 or somewhere, or a percentage of that, just catching this move. And again, it's a lot less stress, and that's with a one lot. Have we been starting early? Topstep TV is starting early, starting at 7:20, 7:20 Central Time. But no, we start at the same time every day here, 3:15. Right. What else do we got here? Any other questions? If not, we will go on to another market. Let's see. Let's go to gold. Let's go to gold. All right. So gold, I think made new all-time highs today, and you can see I've just been playing around in a practice account. So I'm gonna take those executions off so you can actually see the charts. All right, so gold was interesting one today. I don't know if you guys were on slow markets with Dakota last night, but in gold last night, somebody I don't know what they were trying to do. Maybe they were building a position before new all-time highs. We did make new all-time highs today, 28.62.9 on this futures contract, but at 28.52.7, somebody had 1,000 lot sitting here at gold at 28.52.7. Uh, and they put it out there last night once we got back below that price, and they just left it there until this morning, where they took it off, right? Never, I don't think that we filled one contract in that order, and they just pulled it, and then the market shot up above it. I stopped watching gold after that, and I don't know whether or not they put it back on. But 1,000 lots in gold is crazy, right? That's a ton of size. um, I don't know what their intentions were with that, but they didn't get a fill, so they took it off. Maybe someone was watching and we got it later in the day, but I don't think so. So if we look at gold, uh, last night it looked like it was going to rally. You had a decent trade here. Um, Off this urgency, you got about 5 points. But once the market turned, and Coach Paul talks about this all the time, right? Where can you set your stops on this trade? Let's say you did get long here. Does the market presented a long opportunity? Maybe I got long. I got 5 points in my favor. But once the market, maybe I go 2 ATR stops where I'm here at the high of this candle, and the ATR for gold at this point was 5 points. So I got a 10-point stop. My stop would be down here. But once we close back below this VWAP, do I still need to hold on to that, or do I cut it? Do I say, hey, if we make a new low, I cut it? You got a couple options here, but this would have been a losing trade, right? Which is okay. I lost a couple trades today and was able to still make some money, because then at this point, if I lose this trade, it's just about finding the next one. And the next one was a short, right? Where we had price leave the range, volume leave the range, a test of the range, rejection. This is a really nice short here, um, for about 10 points. Um, and this was when, I saw a couple of people saying, I want to buy gold. I want to buy gold last night. But with that huge order out there, uh, two ways the market can go up. Someone needs to either buy 1,000 contracts of gold, or whoever has that order there needs to pull it, right? So you can see last night, this order got placed right around this time, which was around 8 p.m. Eastern time. and the market did not trade above that price until they pulled it this morning, right? So buying gold last night was tough because there wasn't enough volume to get through that order. Like we said, not even one contract of that order got traded, right? So, you need some serious volume, or you need that person to get out of the way so the market can move up. We did have a nice, pop this morning, and then another sell off, but gold is in an uptrend. This was a nice short. Let's look where we are on the 30-minute chart. Still above Coach Paul's 200 moving average, maybe getting a little bit extended, and that's why we're seeing a pullback. But this is not a market I want to short for a long time, especially with all the news going on um, out there. Uh, could you please? Uh, why did you choose that candle, the trigger candle in the Nasdaq? We can go back to that, but basically, it was a high volume candle and significant price action. Right? I'm calling it significant price action because at that point, we were in let's see if we could find another one, um, maybe in a different market. So what would be considered a trigger here? Uh, this one maybe, but, what trade am I looking for? This is probably a better trigger right here, where this candle is decent volume. We break below this level, right? So if we were looking like a head and shoulders pattern or something like that, we break below, where we started to rally. This is a trigger here. What would I do here? And at this point, I don't know that this candle is coming, right? If we look at the charts like this is the only frame of reference I have. So that's a pretty big volume candle compared to everything else that happened. That's going to be my trigger to go short, right? Where do I short? Somewhere near 50% of that candle, because that's my trigger, or lower if it just goes without me. But this is where I can limit my risk. If I get a trade somewhere in this candle, my risk can go above the high of it. And we could see, waiting for this volume. This was after 12 p.m. Eastern time. Could I have tried to catch it up here? I could have, but what was my trigger up here? Maybe this candle. Maybe this candle right. Oh, come on, what are you doing? Maybe this candle right here, but is that significant price action to you? Right? Maybe it is, right? You got a Dakota 3-bar reversal up here. Maybe that's significant enough, and we can see it did work, right? High volume compared to everything else we had. I anchor VWAP there. It leaves the range. You could consider this one, right? But I like this one a lot better because it breaks below uh, a breakout level that we had before. Yep. This is market manipulation. Some billionaire holding the. Yeah, I mean, you got to have some money out there to put 1,000 lot. Whether you had the intentions of it getting filled or not, that's up to you. But um, I can't put 1,000 lot position on in any account that I have. So you got to have some pockets. Volvo, you said don't worry about big numbers. Focus on your process. I 1,000% agree. Spoofing. So I don't know that I would call that one spoofing because they left it there for 12 hours, right? So someone could have filled some of it if they wanted to, right? It's just every time the market got there, they didn't want to fill it. Spoofing is more like they flash the order, 100 times in a minute to try to trick the market into doing something, but they just put the order out there and they left it. Um, and you know, a lot of times we try to look at it, maybe it's spoofing, but think about this: if you put a sell order up at 28.60 in gold, you leave it there until Monday, the price never gets there and you cancel it. Were you spoofing, or did you just not get the price you were looking for and you cancel the order, right? So I don't know what the intentions were, again, of that market participant, but they left that order out there for a very long time. Uh, what do you think about trading points instead of dollar amounts? I think it's a good, psychological thing. If you focus on the money while you're trading, uh, then changing that and taking it off. It's another version of taking the P&L off your screens. Uh, Traders are smart though, and a lot of times we just do the math in our heads. But it's a good way to just not instantly think about the money. Um, well, let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. in a bunch of different markets, especially again with all the headlines with tariffs and all that stuff coming out of the U.S. right now, and how it's going to affect uh, pretty much every industry uh, is really interesting. And again, we're going to see effects in pretty much every market that we trade. We've seen the agricultural markets with being some of our biggest percentage movers on the day because everything is affected. Can you talk more about anchored VWAP? Yeah, it's pretty much uh, one of the key components of my strategy. And I'll go over to crude real quick just so we can talk about another market while we do this. But anchor VWAP is pretty much, part of my strategy. If I had one indicator that I could use, would it be VWAP or volume? It would be VWAP because VWAP includes volume. Um, But the reason I'm using an anchored VWAP and not just the session VWAP is because, like you can see what I'm doing here, right? I'm looking for a high volume event, and then I want to see what the market's response is since that high volume event occurred, right? If I just use the full session VWAP, which is still pretty good, right? And I still do use it every day. Um, I'm getting the consolidations or lower volume times in that data, right? For the reaction to the tariff comments, I want to know, okay, since this point, how is the market responding? And anchoring a view up to there gives me more information. Shout out to Brian Shannon, who wrote the book on anchored VWAP. I would highly suggest if anyone is interested in it to check the book out, um, because a lot of this, event-based anchors and things like that, he talks about in that book. It's probably one of the best trading books that I've read because it's not just theory. He's giving you examples, like he's giving you pretty much a playbook in that book. Um, but anchoring it gives me more recent data after something happens. What price was that 1,000 lot sitting at in gold? It was 2857, 2852.7, 2852.7. Process over profit really did come into play yesterday. I was holding up 3,000 until profit target. Paul, that's a great trade, man. That's a great trade. I can't look at charts without anchored VWAPs anymore. Yeah, to me, it just helps tell me what exactly what the market is trying to do. Can you show your settings on your volume moving average? Yeah. So here's my volume indicator here. It's just everything here is the same. Moving average is 20. The smoothing line, all of this is default. I didn't change anything here. I just changed the colors. I changed this to a histogram. So it's instead of a volume line, I changed it to a histogram so I can get the bars. Now I just messed it up. Change that to a histogram. And then I just have the volume moving average selected. So I have that red line there. So I can see what the average is. ICT said not to use indicators because market makers won't fill your order. That's an opinion. Everyone looks at the markets differently. Uh, I don't know how to read the DOM. How can you tell the 100 lot is one order? You can't. There's ways you can tell. You can use something called market market by order data. It's not necessary. Whether this is one person or 100 people, the fact that I know that there's 100 contracts sitting at 74 is probably enough information. It might. And someone asked this earlier today. In Discord, is it important to know it? I said it's probably more interesting to know whether or not that gold order, for example, right? 999 of that was one order, and then everything else, where it was like 1,015 total, everything else was probably just somebody else just jumping on. But 999 of it was one order. But does that make it any more relevant? Probably not. Um, all right, crude oil, crude oil, crude oil. It's been doing that same pattern, but we did get above the 200 moving average last night. We had another rejection at that 200 moving average. Coach Paul and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, where we've been in a downtrend since we hit $80 on the December contract, and eventually trends are gonna break, right? Where so many days down in crude, eventually, we're going to see some relief, some profit taking potentially. We got down to a higher time frame consolidation area, this kind of zone right here. We can mark this out. We can see a couple of days of consolidation. We got back there. We're kind of testing it. Can't close below 50% of whatever this consolidation is. I guess that's because how I marked it out, but you guys get the picture. But a little bit of relief in crude oil right now. Crude oil is going to be an interesting market. I think the news I saw on tariffs in crude is we're going to make decisions about it sometime later in the month. Um, but or I guess not later in the month because January is over, but sometime next month. But last night, if you were looking at crude, you had a nice rejection off the 200 moving average to take that trade. Uh, same concept, same thing that we've been seeing pretty much the last 2 weeks, right? We get a nice trend in London, and then by the time we get to New York, there's craziness. Look at the overlap in these, and these are 30-minute candles. Uh, there's a lot of overlap here. Trading it in London, there's kind of one directional movement, but by the time we got to New York, this is kind of crazy, right? At this point, I don't know that I want to be trading crude. I guess if we go down to a shorter time frame, um, it's a range bound market, and you could trade it that way. But at this point, I think I stopped looking at crude for the day. Um, and there's a bunch of different ways to look at the markets. I see the ICT conversations in the chat. Some of his some of the concepts I think are very valid. I see a lot of overlap in what I do. That 50%, he's going to call it equilibrium. There's validity there, right? Whether you agree with everything, probably not, but you don't have to either. I was thinking about that this morning actually, where sometimes somebody might hear me talk about volume and be like, "Oh, this is completely unnecessary. This guy's overcomplicating things." It's just like if that's the case, and you think I'm wrong for viewing the markets this way, you should want that because if I'm wrong, that means your strategy has the potential to be right, and in order for us to make money here, somebody has to be wrong, right? So uh, look at the markets however you want to. I'm gonna make my decisions, and then we'll go from there. Uh, all right. Any other markets we want to talk about? If not, we can go through the quick data visualization we have for all the different markets for this month, and then we'll go. It is Friday. I'm running this one solo right now. Uh, so any other markets we want to talk about before we go? Lumber markets. I don't have the charts for lumber on Top X. I haven't looked at them, but I'm sure they're probably rallying right now. And Vovo, I see your comment. And a lot of times people say, "Oh, you're a course seller" or things like that. Do I want to talk about this? I'll ask a question to the chat. There's a lot of comments about how people sell courses and things like that. Do we think? Would we all agree or disagree that there that education in trading is helpful, or is it not helpful at all? Right? Regardless if someone is profitable or not, is education in trading helpful? Helpful, right? Regardless if the person is profitable or not. The trading mentor that I had, I saw how much money he made one day ever, but I saw his concepts work for him placing trades. I saw them work for other people. Could have never made a dollar, but I saw his concepts work, right? So if someone is providing information that says, "Hey, this is how I can help you look at the markets in order to make decisions," and then it helps you make profits, does that make them a fraud? Or does that make the information they're providing valuable enough for you to help you make decisions? Right? It's not, and someone just said it. It's not just the system. The system is the smallest part of trading. Right? It really is the smallest part of trading because you could look at there's people that trade moon cycles. Are they frauds for trading moon cycles? I don't know. Do they make profits from trading moon cycles because they manage their risk and know how to repeatedly make a decision? Yeah. So it's hard to say that. Well, now if somebody's claiming to be this best trader and they're not necessarily showing results, maybe that's a different story. You guys have heard me say I'm never going to claim to be the best. I do decent. There's still things that I'm working through with my trading, right? But I think we need to separate the someone who's educating people and someone who's claiming to be the best, and both people can do whatever they want, right? Have your space, and you don't have to listen to somebody else. And again, this is a zero sum game. So whether if you feel that somebody's teaching someone false information, but they decide to go follow it, guess what? That's somebody that you're trading against who's filling your pockets with whatever your strategy is, right? So at the end of the day, I love all of you that are here, but we might be trading against each other, right? I have my strategy, you have yours. Ideally, we can both win. But if I had to choose between me winning a trade and you winning a trade, I'm going to choose me every single time, right? With my strategy. I don't care what you do, right? Hopefully that makes sense. And that's the way I look at this. I feel like a lot of times when people get very caught up in like, oh, this person sucks, it's because you're probably trying to sell something yourself. I'm not trying to sell shit to you, right? To anybody here. Um, and that's why I do this through Topstep, and I really appreciate Topstep for presenting this platform for us to talk to traders. Uh, because you don't have to pay me for any of this information, and you also don't have to agree with it, right? Today's Friday though. Why are we getting so deep? Let's talk about the markets that that moved this month, and then we'll get out of here. All right, breakdown of market appearances. You guys know that we start all of our and this is not DeepSeek. This is Chat GPT. Uh, Tyler said, "Ease up." My bad, Tyler. My bad. This is what happens when Coach Paul doesn't join. So uh, when me and Coach Paul decided to do at the buzzer together, he was supposed to be the go guy, right? The hard go getter guy, and he hasn't done it. So every once in a while, you might get that out of me. I try not to bring that up, but I really think that there's certain ways we need to think about how this whole game works. Um, all right, breakdown of market appearances in the top three movers. This is either up or down on the day. These are all colored. You could take a screenshot of this if you want this as well, just to get an idea. What are we gonna do with this data? Who knows? I'll probably do this one of these every month just to get a general idea. I think it's more information than anything, but I think it kind of reinforces the fact that there are different markets out there for us to trade. Right, so we can see natural gas today. Sorry, not today, but for this month of January, 13 days in the top three percentage movers. Um, Still trying to decide whether or not this is, color coded the right way to see how many times it was, the first uh, in first position, up or down, or first, second, or third. Uh, but we can see here nat gas 13 days. Wheat futures actually 9 days in the top percentage movers. And again, that's either to the upside or the downside. We got soybean meal, crude oil. We've talked about how much crude oil was in a consolidation all of last year. 8 days this year, it's been in the top three percentage movers. Um, Notice we haven't talked about an equity market, and we're 5 markets in. Platinum, 8 days, top percentage mover to the upside or downside in the top three. Silver, and we have soybeans and soybean oil, 6 days in that top percentage movers. Uh, Lean hogs, shout out to Coach Hoop, 5 days in the top percentage movers to the upside or downside. Um, then we got RBOB gasoline futures, 4 days. The Nikkei, 4 days. The NASDAQ, 4 days. Micro Ethereum futures, something we don't really talk about at all. I think it's 5 cents a tick. I don't know. I think we might have one trader at Topstep trading micro Ethereum futures, 4 days. Cattle, again, shout out to Coach Hoop, 4 days. Uh, Heating oil and copper, all at 4 days in those top percentage movers. Now, what's really interesting about this, right? The way we're measuring this is the percentage move from settlement. The NASDAQ today wouldn't have made this list because the NASDAQ ended up at 0.2% on the day. But if you look at the point move, and I might start if I could find a way to get this data, how many points did the market move from between, from high to low, uh, then we might start tracking that because the Nasdaq, although there might have been a market like there was soybean oil today that moved up 2.6%. Overall movement, right? The NASDAQ could have gone, way further than that, right? Because we had a, come on, measure it. We had almost a 1% move to the upside. And then from that high, we had almost a 2% move to the downside, right? So did NASDAQ present more opportunities? Or if we look at a soybean oil chart where it was, 2%, and this looks crazy as well. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly what to do with this data. Again, we just mention these markets every day. So I think it's interesting. And maybe I'll look back at this data and see it was not valuable at all, or maybe there's something that we can get from this. But this is what we have for the first month of the year. Uh, one so Andrew, that's a good point, right? Track one contract move. I like that. I like that. Right, but so I see some questions on this data. It's tracking the it's tracking settlement to settlement basically, right? So wherever the market settled and then wherever it settles for that next day. Um, Right. But any other questions before we go? Any other markets we want to take a look at, or do we just want to get into the weekend? It is Friday. Hopefully, everybody has some good plans for this weekend. Maybe you're going to study some charts, study how you did for this week. Take an hour or so to do that. It doesn't have to be all weekend. Right. I think we need to make sure we spend some time off the charts so we can appreciate our time on the charts. That's my goal for this year is to get off the charts as much as possible. Congrats to all of the new VIPs. If you got selected to one of the VIP teams, you have a great coach to work with, regardless of what team you got on. Remember, you're going to get as much out of that as you put into it. So ask questions, ask as many questions as possible to your coaches. It's our job to answer them and to get you as much information as possible if you're on those VIP teams. And if you didn't get selected to a team, there's going to be more opportunities in the future to do so. But you're always here. If you're here with us, you can always ask me a question here. I'll try to answer it as much as I can. And I think that is it. I think that's it. All right. Everybody have a great weekend. We're gonna go ahead and end it there. Remember, Nick Fortick opens up for us on Top Step TV on Sundays at 4:45 Central Time. And then we have Dakota for slow markets. If you didn't check out some of the great content we had this week, we had Jim Dalton on Thursday. I think the team cut that out and made it its own segment. And then we had Tuesday, we had Brett Steenbarger, which is always a great segment as well. Take a look at those if you haven't looked at them already. For us here, hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And I will see you all next week. Have a good one. Bye.